And the second thing is that we do have a couple of people that said they had to arrive late, so we expect some people to straggle in around 6 o'clock, and we'll probably be in the middle of doing some training stuff, but I'll jump to the side and pull them off and get them oriented. But first, I just want to say thank you, and we're deeply grateful that there's actually folks that are interested and passionate enough to commit their time and energy to help in this effort to register young folks to vote. As Allison mentioned, we're part of a nonprofit organization. For those of you that aren't really familiar with KANU, we're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, and our mission is to build social movement for more sustainable, compassionate, and resilient communities. And we focus on those words, those values, because we feel like those are habits that ought to come naturally to people living on islands together. We have to be mindful of our resources. We got to know how to live well together because we can't run away from each other on islands. And we know that it pays to invest in the local self-reliance of our communities because we're out here in the middle of the ocean. So we're not a single issue organization. We focus on those values, and then issues that sort of come up out of the conversation of those values are the things that we focus on. So every other month or so for the past couple of years, we've run campaigns that are really calls to action for people. One of the more popular ones is our Eat Local Challenge, where we challenge people across islands to try to eat strictly local for an entire month, only locally grown stuff, which if you guys have tried that, you know it's really painful and you can nearly starve to death in the course of a month. But you get the idea. And now this year, the reason why we're focusing on the election cycle is because this idea of building movement and caring for the islands in an active way really requires people to be civically engaged, and not just in our individual lives and habits, but also in our duties as citizens and members of our community to shape the institutions around us, especially government. Okay? And part of the reason we're focusing on that this year is because over the past 3 or 4 years that we've been around, as we've worked on these issues of sustainability, energy, food, waste, compassion, we've done some things around the homeless issue. Every issue we've worked on, when it's come to working on changing policy or changing government, we've sort of at times felt like we were beating our heads against the wall. And that is because although the government is designed to be open to citizens in a democracy, if any of you have participated in the process, it sometimes does feel like the citizen voice is sort of the lowest voice on the totem pole, that there are other interests and other voices that speak louder in a forum like the state capitol or at the legislature, especially interests that have resources to pay for a lobbyist or to make a campaign contribution, which the average citizen doesn't have the resources to do. And so it's really out of that frustration that this effort comes. So this voter registration drive here at UH Manoa is part of a broader effort to raise up the voices of people, especially folks that have been sort of marginalized or left out of the elections process and therefore out of policy making. And that includes young folks, first-time voters, and residents of our low-income communities. So we're going to be making a concerted effort to reach out, register those folks to vote, get them to turn out, but also engage them in conversation about which issues are important to them and to you. And so we'd like this to be the kickoff of sort of a bottom-up process of identifying priorities and issues that are important and getting the candidates and ultimately the lawmakers to respond to those priorities defined by us versus the ones that are defined by the moneyed interests. So that's the sort of big picture, and this is really the first step in that process. It's our first effort to sort of register people in those target communities at scale. And so I'll come back to the thank you because we couldn't do that without you. And if you've taken a look at sort of the online sign-up form for requests, you'll see that we have, I think, approaching 50 requests from professors that total more than 1,200 students. We also have the ability to table at the libraries, in other common areas, at the law school, and we're working on the dorms as well. And so there's an opportunity here to register large numbers of students, and especially if you think about the dorms as an example. You know, a lot of us feel like, well, that one vote might not matter so much, but I can tell you that looking back at the 2010 election results for this district, it was about 6,000 voters that turned out overall in total for all of the Manoa district. About 1,500 of those votes decided the election. There's 4,000 students who live in the dorms here on campus, most of them can probably vote in the Manoa district, but most of them are probably also not registered to vote right now. So that gives you a sense of the potential that we're trying to tap, and again, thank you for being here and being a part of that.
So everyone in your packet has a student voter registration sheet. And there's a tips for a pitch section at the top, which we're going to go over later. But we are actually going to fill out the voter registration form ourselves and then practice on each other. So does everyone have a form to fill out?
There should be roughly 20 of them in your packet, although maybe give or take a few, you might have miscounted. I might have miscounted a few that I
So take out your form, get your pen ready, and start to fill it out. It's pretty self-explanatory. To go over them, maybe people can win t-shirts. Does anybody here know the two main ways to vote? That people can vote?
Two main ways?
Or I mean the two ways, sorry, not the two main ways.
Yeah, in person at the polling place and by absentee ballot.
That's right.
And you can now declare that you want to be absentee ballot forever, or you can do it for a one-time period.
Exactly. So that's the difference between permanent absentee, which is in the future until further notice I want to be absentee and receive the ballot in my mail at home, versus just for this election year absentee. Does anyone here know who is eligible to vote in terms of age?
18 or older.
And how old do you have to be when you register to vote?
You could be 16 or 17.
You can be 16, you must be 16 when you actually register, and the date, like you know how people sign in date, you have to be 16 at that time when you sign this paper. That's right. Does anyone know what to tell students to do if they're out of state? Can students out of state vote in Hawaii?
If we reside here,
Yeah. If they reside here and they wish to participate in voting in decisions with Hawaii. And generally, the definition of reside is that they intend to make Hawaii their home, but also that they wish to participate in voting. So it's kind of an ambiguous definition, and there's no real standard or way to enforce that really. Generally, if people wish to vote, since they do actually live here and reside here, if someone's in the dorms, then they can vote in Hawaii, or they can choose to vote in their home state if they want to.
One possible proof is if they are going to be scholarship recipients, you have to establish a year's residence here before you can apply for things. So that's one active way of establishing.
I'm just kind of going over like the main points. I think there's a tip sheet, so I don't want to go through the whole thing, but for students residing in the UH Manoa dorms, one thing that's important is to distinguish between residence address in Hawaii versus mailing address. So if a student feels like they identify with Hawaii, they reside here, and they wish to participate in voting here in Manoa, then they should fill out their residence address in Hawaii as their actual dorm address, and then they can fill out their mailing address. Like let's say that they're going away on the summer break and they're going to go back to Chicago to their family, or they're going to go back to Kauai. Then their mailing address, they could fill that in as their other home address, their home away from home off-island address. And then they'll receive communications from the Office of Elections that will give them their ballot and also, you know, any other information like their verification card in the mail. So that's one thing to pay attention to. And-
Allison,
Yeah.
what about students here that are from Micronesia or Guam or have green cards? Any specific issues there?
Um,
So they're U.S. citizens but not from the 50 states, or green card holders
I
that,
think that, if anyone knows the answer to this, please speak up, but I think that the requirements are here, yes. I swear and affirm that I am a citizen of the United States, and then it says non-US citizens, including US nationals, do not qualify. I'm at least 16 years old, and I understand that I must be 18 years old by election date of vote, and I'm a resident of the state of Hawaii. I believe that is the requirements, but I can also check on that question, especially if you're asking it, it's probably going to come up as a question. So, does anyone else here have more information about that?
I believe that they're not allowed to vote. I've just heard that as a critique that people from Micronesia in particular are allowed to sign up to join the military, but not allowed to vote. So
wow.
that definitely would be something to look into. There are a lot of students
That's
from
certainly,
the territories.
yeah, that's certainly the case if they live in Micronesia, if they live here permanently. They are American citizens. No, it's by affiliation.
Yeah, it's a free
Yeah,
association
affiliation.
state. You know, we'll check on that. We'll call outside elections and check specifically on nations that have a compact of free association, like Micronesia and other outlying territories, and find out. And we'll email everybody the answer to that.
Does that include Puerto Rico and Guam?
Yes.
Yeah?
So I just looked at at least Puerto Rico, I knew that one better. At the national level, you're disenfranchised. So you cannot vote for national office, you cannot vote for president, but within your own jurisdiction, then you're voting. So I wonder if you're a resident of the state of Hawaii, even if you cannot vote for the president, or perhaps you cannot vote for Congress. But you can vote
if you're
for
a
your
Puerto
state.
Rican and you're living here as a permanent resident, you can vote. Because I have a friend who is Puerto
Right.
Rican, and she wouldn't give up to that for anything, but she votes here.
But yeah, so you could vote for your state offices, but you may not be allowed to vote for your congressional offices.
Okay, that's helpful.
Should be
I will
here.
still check on it, and we'll email you guys, because those are really good questions and important, as well as obviously political critiques of like how our current system is or isn't working.
What about students that were incarcerated? Do you have to worry about that?
It's a really good question.
You can vote. You can vote. In Hawaii, you can vote if you're a convicted felon, as long as you're not in jail at the time. So once you're released, you can vote.
You know what we'll do is we'll include these things in the fact sheet, and we could resend another fact sheet out. Or maybe tip sheet. Any other questions? These are good questions.
Well, so, like for me, I'm in my first year at UH from San Diego, and I was registered in San Diego. So, but how do I register myself here? And like, I'm sure there's tons of other students that are in the same boat.
So you can, the registration form here, you can list your resident address in Hawaii as your address here.
Okay.
And then if you think you're going to be going home for the summer and then coming back, if you want to, you could put your mailing address as your San Diego address.
Gotcha.
Or if you think you're going to be here, basically the whole thing with that in-between part is that they're going to mail people a yellow,
Like a reminder.
and it's also their way of seeing if it gets bounced back saying return to sender or this person doesn't live
Gotcha.
here, and then they'll disqualify or kick out those cards. So it's a way for them of verifying that that person actually does live here. But as long as no one's there to say, oh no, she doesn't live here anymore, then it'll be fine and it'll
Okay.
be accepted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not more. What can you vote in 2 states at the same time? Like say someone's absentee in California, but they're now living here, UH.
I don't think so.
No, you can't. There's actually a box on here, box number 9, where if you're registered in another state, you have to say that the state you were registered in, and they'll take you off the rolls there and add you to the rolls here.
Kind of got to pick a team, a state team.
There's one other thing too, if people are going home for the summer, whether fill out a yellow post office change of address card, and that's going to get all of your mail to you. So it'd be wise to carry those with you too.
Let's see. So if you will be out of state or off island during the summer, you can fill out an application for absentee voter ballot and list the address of where your ballots can be mailed to you, but you will be responsible for mailing in your ballot on time. That's if you're moving during the summer and you might come back with a different address. So if you want to still be able to vote here, even though you're going to be moving.
One last question.
Get your voter, you can get your ballot in the mail in the mainland or wherever you might be. Okay.
Yeah, so you could vote even though you're not going to physically be here because you're doing it absentee. And then once you're registered, you will receive the yellow card that I described in the mail sometime in May. So if people ask, you can say, oh yeah, look for it in May to confirm your mailing address and other voter information. Again, as long as it's not returned to sender, it should be accepted. And there's a phone number here for the county elections clerk office. And so if people want to call and check and verify that it got accepted, they can. Or if they have any other questions that we're not covering today, they can call. And then if their voter file is not accepted for any reason, then they can register when they return for the primary by July 12th. That's the cutoff for registration. And for the general by October 8th.
Question?
What the registrar always says, if you have any question on whether you're registered or not, you can just fill out another form and send it in. Or if you have a change of address, you can just fill out the form and send it in again. And all these forms are online. You can just Google it, and it'll pop right up. You can print it out, and so it's easy to do. And it's probably the easiest way. Occasionally there's a glitch down in the elections office, and they won't have you registered properly. And so if you have any questions about it, or you didn't get your yellow card, or whatever, the easiest thing to do is just fill out another form and send it in.
That's kind of the default if you ever don't know. It's like people can always just re-register.
Right.
If in doubt, you can just fill out another form. And as you can see, because you guys just did it, it took about 2 minutes. It's not really that hard of a process to do, and it doesn't take that long. So, yeah, you can definitely do that. Yes?
If we go into a class and there's some students that are homeless, so they have a mailing address but not a residential address, what do we do there?
You can actually describe the physical location where you stay. So you don't need a physical address to register to vote. And if you want to vote, if you're living in Kaka'ako at a shelter or on the street and you want to vote in that district, you can describe the location. There's actually a line on the registration form at the bottom of that first section where you can describe your physical location.
And it can be like 2 cross streets. Like that's enough of a description. It doesn't have to be the address of anything. So.
Actually, there's a member of the Makiki Neighborhood Board who lives in Thomas Square Park, and he's a member of the neighborhood board, so he registered to vote as a resident of Thomas Square.
So questions?
I guess I'm just confused about establishing residency versus registering to vote, because earlier there was a question, like if a student's from California or Iowa and their residency is in another state, but by registering to vote, are you also establishing residency in the state of Hawaii?
It's actually a sign of when you want to get in-state tuition, if you bring in the fact that you registered to vote in the state, then they take that as like starting from that date that you're establishing your residency. So then a year from that date, then you can get in-state tuition at UH.
That's true, though. You are changing your residency.
Oh, well.
By registering to vote, you're changing your residency from one state to another.
That's true.
Oh, wow. That's quick.
And as we talked about before, the definition that they gave us at the Office of Elections is if you have the intention to, or if you currently reside here and you want to participate in this election, but you do have to pick a team or a state. So you have to choose between, do I want to vote in California or do I want to vote in Hawaii? You can always change that. There's no, you can always just next election re-register in a different state, or you can change that. So you can pretty much change that at any time by re-registering. Is there any other questions? Yeah.
Do you know how long it takes to get the yellow card back once we send it in?
They're saying that it's sometime in May people are going to get the yellow card.
And then the 2 elections, so we can tell them, you know, the date they need to be back by. It's August something, and
Yeah, so it's in this little tip sheet. Let's see. The deadline for registering to vote for the primary is July 12th, and the other one is August.
You have to have proof of ID at the polling place on election day. So if I was obviously voting for Hawaii and I have my California ID, is that okay? Okay.
It's just any proof of ID, and
Okay.
the forms are listed there with the valid ID. There's some question that I still have about if people don't have an ID, but I need to take that up with the people that handle the day of elections, because it's a different department. So, any other questions?
I just want to point out the primary this year is very, very important because, especially because of the senatorial race. And then the main election is important too because Linda Lingle is running for the senatorial race, so that could tip the balance in the Senate in the favor of Republicans.
And that senator will vote for the next Supreme Court justices.
Right.
You've got to look at the whole picture. That's the key right there.
Right. So it's
Justice.
definitely, the primary is important, the general elections, it's all important.
Yeah.
what I was looking for this morning and I didn't find it is, they have a ballot up yet, like a preview ballot?
No. Some of the redistricting is still being handled in court. Yeah, so,
The filing deadline is actually not till June 5th.
Just a few minutes on what happened in the classroom.
Okay, so what happens in the classroom?
Oh yeah, just
Yeah, do you actually want to is this what you're talking about?
okay. So just really quickly, the specific volunteer ask is we're asking all of you to actually go into classrooms where professors have requested that a volunteer come in and do a quick overview and pass out voter registration forms on the spot and register students to vote right there. And so I just did a test run of this yesterday, and so I just wanted to share a little bit of that experience and some of the key questions that came up and tips that I think might be important. So this is actually, all this is contained in your handout. It's the first page of your handout that says Student Voter Registration Tips for the Pitch, right on the front. And this top section is really just bullet points that I used in making the pitch to students on why it's important to register to vote. Because despite the fact that we're making it easy, it's still not an easy sell, although it takes 5 minutes right there. So part of what I emphasized to students was the importance of this election cycle, and what you two have shared is really critical. And on the local level, all of our senators and representatives in the legislature are up for re-election, which doesn't happen all the time. So it's a chance to really decide the people that make policy for our entire state, as well as influencing important congressional and obviously a presidential election too. I shared that statistic about how even one vote can make a difference, the fact that most races are decided by less than 1,000 votes at the local level, and that there's 4,000 students living in the dorms compared to 6,000 total voters for the Manoa district. I mean, students can be a pretty massive force in an election cycle if everyone registers and votes together. And then the last thing I did was I gave them a quick preview of what was being handed out to them. So we're handing out in each classroom is 3 sheets stapled together. The front sheet is the voter registration application, which you guys just filled out. The second sheet is the application for absentee ballot, because one thing we know, or I know from my own experience, is that I'm much more likely to vote if I can do it from home, and if I don't have to go to a polling place and wait in line and go through that hassle and figuring that out. And so we highly recommend that everyone fill this out as well. Unfortunately, there's some repeated information from the voter registration form, but altogether this will only take 5 minutes. Both forms together will take 5 minutes. And then the important selling point to communicate to them is that they don't have to go to their polling place. They'll get their ballot in the mail and they can vote from home. Okay. And then the third sheet is this, and it's just name, email, and a checkbox. And what we're asking for is this third sheet is optional. All the sheets are optional, but this third sheet, our commitment, County of Hawaii's commitment back to these students is, if they give us a way to keep in touch with them, name and email address, then we'll get them a couple things before Election Day. One is, our first commitment is we'll make it easy for them to vote. So they'll get the absentee ballot information. We'll send them reminders about it. Two is, we'll get them information about candidates before Election Day. So we're going to send out a candidate questionnaire to all local candidates, and they'll have more to go on than just name recognition or party affiliation, or like the way my grandma used to vote is, whoever's name sounded more Japanese was who she would vote for. So, we'll have more to go on than just names and faces and who's waving sign the longest in your neighborhood. The third thing you'll get is everyone will get an invitation to participate in kind of community-based conversations to identify issues that are important to your community, which will then communicate to the candidates and hopefully hold them accountable to. And the last thing is we'll give them some information on how the candidates do once they're actually elected into office. So we're trying to create this flow of information about candidates beforehand, candidates after the election, and really the point of that again is to sort of raise up people power and turn down the influence of money in politics. So that's all in here. You don't have to go through that whole explanation, but I would encourage you to encourage all the students you come into contact with to fill out all 3 forms. So that's the form itself. A couple tips about the actual pitch. So I didn't end up saying that much. I said maybe 2 minutes of words, and then I stood around for 5 to 10 minutes as people were filling out forms, and then there were questions as people started to fill out the forms. The main one was about residency versus mailing address, residential versus mailing address. So you guys got the answer to that. There were questions. There were some people that didn't know their social security number, and in that case, I just said you can mail it in yourself. Or I was lucky in the class yesterday, the professor actually offered to collect them up on Monday or the next class and deliver them to us. But they can fill out, they can go back and check their social security number or any other information that's missing. They can fill it out and they can mail it in themselves to the Office of Elections. Or we have a drop box place where they can drop it off between the hours of 8 and 4:30 on campus, and we'll come back to that at the end. Yes?
On this form, is the address on the form anywhere? For them to
which form
mail
is that?
in? This is the...
Oh, not on that. I don't
No,
think
it's
so.
not.
So-
It's not. It's actually in your tip sheet. So
Okay.
you can tell them what the address is, or they can just Google Office of Elections Hawaii, and it'll be right there. So a couple tips just for your time in class. One is I try to get there a little bit early, and especially if you're coming from off campus, parking is a total nightmare. I mean, I was shocked. It's been a long time since I've come onto campus during school hours, and all of the public parking spaces on campus are filled. So I would plan to have to park in the parking structure and walk over, and we'll be reimbursing for parking, okay? But I would plan ahead for that, try to get there a little bit early so you can talk to the professor ahead of time to say, here's how it's gonna go. A lot of the professors in their online forms that they submitted said, I'd really like this to happen at the beginning of class and within the first 15 or 20 minutes so that I can have the rest of the class to teach. And so we want to be respectful of that and be in and out within that 15 to 20 minutes. Pass out the forms. A couple of key reminders for the students as they're filling this out. One is they have to use black ink. If it's pencil, if it's green, if it's red, it's going to be disqualified. So they have to use black ink. It might help just to clarify at the outset the whole residential versus mailing address thing. And also the if they're moving from a dorm or from near campus housing someplace else, that issue. Remind them to sign both forms. I got a couple of forms back that were lacking a signature that I had to go back and track someone down for a signature, because if it's missing that one piece, then the whole thing is worthless. And then if you start running out of time and students are still working on their forms and 15 minutes is up, I would collect up what you have at 15 minutes and leave and say, you can always drop it at the drop box or mail it in yourself. But I really want us not to go too far over time, because the professors did say, that class time is really valuable. Any questions about the actual pitch? Yes?
Yeah. I've done, 1 year we did 2,000 of these, so a couple of most common mistakes is that a lot of the students don't know that they're residing anywhere on Oahu. You're residing in the city and county of Honolulu. So a lot of them will check the county of Hawaii, just without thinking about it. They have to have their social security number, but the biggest problem, I think, was legibility. You really have to ask them to print clearly, or it'll be disqualified. And there's also a witness signature down here that could confuse people. That doesn't have to be filled in. It's only in the case of someone not being able to sign and making a mark. So you don't have to worry about that at all. And all 3 of these boxes have to be checked yes, or again, it's disqualified.
Thank you.
Over the years, I've had just a few people that refused to fill out the form because of religion or leftover hippie or something like that, and they put a damper on everything else. It calls into question, well, then why should I be voting? And there are anomalies, but do you have any suggestions for how to handle somebody like that?
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't. I didn't run into any of those yesterday, thank goodness. But I might just reemphasize the point about, it's part of being in a democracy, and if you got suggestions too.
I mean, I was just going to say, I think if you don't vote, then you're giving your vote to some other person, and so do you want to choose? Then you're making a conscious. As long as you make a conscious choice, it's cool. But make a decision that you're going to give someone else your vote out there, and then it is really true that every single vote counts. There's been studies done of particular elections races where someone has won or lost, or an issue has won or lost by 1 or 2 votes, literally. So I think there's also people that maybe come from an anarchist tradition, or wherever people are coming from, where they may not believe in that our democracy is a democracy. You can have all those critiques, but if you don't participate now, then someone else is going to participate for you, and then your ability to change the democracy that you critique is less.
James, I have a question based on what she said. If you register to vote, does that mean you're going to get junk mail from the government, or what are the consequences? Are you going to be called for jury duty? What are the things that lead me to? Are you going to be entered in a lottery, or?
I don't think lottery or junk mail, but I hear a yes in the back about being called for
Jury
jury
duty, but also if you have a driver's
Driver's
license,
license, too.
you're registered for jury duty. So you're likely going to be on the hook somewhere.
there's
right?
several
You're just
pools.
changing where you're on the hook for jury duty if you're changing your residency from elsewhere to Hawaii. I just wanted to share 2 thoughts. One was actually in 2004, I did youth voter outreach for that sort of heartbreaking election. But there was, I think, we don't have any huge lecture classes, I think, in the list that I see right now. But there was a New Mexico state election that hung on basically 200 votes. So that's the size of a large lecture class in a lot of universities, right? So I mean, thinking about not even just the 4,000 people in the dorms, but you can shift a state election with one class. So that was the one thought. And then the second thing is I looked up, and if you were born after 1986, in Guam, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the Northern Marianas Islands, after November 1986, you are considered a U.S. citizen. So, for what that's worth, but not American Samoa, unless you naturalized as a citizen.
I
question. So some people might be a little bit wary of giving me their social security number, address and stuff. How can I assure them that Canoe is legit and not use it the wrong way?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just emphasize that we're a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization. We actually have permission from the university and support from the university to go and do this voter registration drive. And our process for handling the forms is we're not going to take any information off this unless you check that box at the end. And then in that case, we're just going to take your address so that we know what district you're in, so we can send you information specific to the candidates in your district. And that's it. And it goes straight from us to the Office of Elections. It's to the county clerk.
It's in fact illegal to take any of the information off the voter registration form and use it for any other purpose. It's against the law, so we'd be prosecuted if we did that. And that's why
Mail it in too.
that's why it's necessary for them to fill out this portion, because otherwise Canoe won't be able to contact them.
Yeah.
So if it's okay,
Yeah.
I would like to propose that anybody who still has questions, and for anybody who came in late, like, we're happy to stay after, but just I want to respect you guys' time and still give you guys a chance to practice on each other. So right now we're going to just pair up with somebody in the room, and you're going to practice the pitch that you saw James making to you guys, and you can kind of pretend like you're helping someone fill out a form or whatever, but just to give you some practice of talking about this. And you guys you should keep your pitch within like 2 minutes.
So can we pair off?
Yeah, pair off. This is our address, and then we'll reimburse you for parking. If you have any questions, this is my name and phone number and my email, and I also have business cards that I'll give you guys if you want. T-shirts are over here. Grab them on your way out.
They're organized extra large to small.
Allison, for the video folks, can you say your phone number and your email?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Allison Lum with an M, and my phone number is 1-415-368-3251. I'm still on a family plan. And my email is Allison, ALLISON, @kanuhawaii.org.
Thanks.
Thank you. So the Dropbox, as Jim was mentioning, that we are establishing a Dropbox so that, and one of the points that you guys raised, which was really good, about we should generally be sensitive with this information because it's people's personal information. It has people's social securities and names and things like that. So we want to all take our own kuleana and be responsible volunteers and try to immediately drop off, go to the Dropbox and drop off your completed forms. So it's like not in your hands for a very long time, doesn't end up in your desk or somewhere or whatever. And so these are the Dropbox locations. There's the administrative office of the Hamilton Library, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, and Sunday, 12 to 4:30. There's also another Dropbox at the Center for Biographical Research at Henke Hall, room 325. The general hours are a little bit more loosey, but it's 8:30 to 4:30, and there's a phone number for this one, and I'll get the phone number for that one. We're also trying to establish a pickup zone for each of these locations too, because we want to create a way where, let's say you have a class and you run out of forms and you need more forms, that you can just also go and actually pick up another kit or more forms or pens or things like that. So we're still working that out, but we will, after this training, send you guys all an email reminder with this information and confirming that we have these together, as well as follow up with some of the questions that got raised during this training, which were really great. We'll research them, and then we'll include like an updated tip sheet.
One thing I might suggest that you do right now is there is a campus map in your packet. You can just pull that out and identify Henke and Hamilton if you're not real familiar with the campus, and put circles around them. Henke Hall is right along East-West Road. And if you're heading north on East-West Road, it's just past Kennedy Theater. So just circle that.
Single story.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. And then also too, if you have friends that couldn't make it to this training, or you, like this young lady, want to rope in other people into this effort, because many hands make light work. So Feel free to rope folks in, and we'll send you an email that then you can share with your friends. And people can sign up. Olin has been videotaping this training, and we're going to make the materials also available online. So there'll be kind of like a little training packet for people, and I'll be available to answer people's questions and support them. Is there anything I missed or any other questions?
Do you know where in the library that is?
The admin office? Does anyone here know? I'm not familiar.
Way
Yeah.
to the back on the first floor. I think that's where it is.
Everyone who was talking with Terry is going to set up the details, so I think I'll get that tomorrow, so that'll be included in that final email about exactly.
The reference desk points you right to the end of the hallway.
Okay.
I mean, you could just ask right when you walk into the library. There's a help desk in the front.
Yeah.
Be like, "Where's the admin office?" And they'll point you right to
I
it.
just wondered.
Oh yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Maybe I missed this. Are you going to assign classrooms to us?
So there's two laptops over here. The one on the left is, if you didn't already sign in that you came to this training for us, and then
Actually,
the one
right now
on.
they're both set up with the same Google Doc,
Okay.
update in real time. So what you can do is, you need to explain it.
Yeah.
You can just come over here on your way out, take a look at all the classroom slots. They're organized in order of date. So it starts next Monday and runs through the following Tuesday. And just fill out whichever one you're available for. Now, there are some professors that gave us different options to cover the same class, like their class meets Tuesday, Thursdays. Those have a letter next to them, A through R or something like that. If you see a time slot with a letter next to it, just look down the list and see if your A or R is already taken. And if it is, then move on to the next one. If you need help, I'll be here to explain that. But for the most part, just fill in where you're available, and we can sort out if there's overlaps.
How many should we take? How many spots?
Take as many as you can, one minimum, but you'll see there's a lot of blank spots. We actually have requests that amount to over 1,000 students. So we can use your help in filling some of these slots. And the other thing I'll say is that in the class that I did yesterday, there was about 100 students and 41 registered to vote. So I'll set that as the gold standard. If you can beat better than 40% in the class, then you're doing an excellent job.
Of the 41, how many of those forms were like incomplete, or we?
There's only one that was not signed. Yeah, so that was ineligible.
Is there a way for people that are signing up on there to report back how many they personally registered and be able to keep track and report
we'll
that?
just create another column. You can put in how many you got.
So that we can give people gold stars
Yeah.
or a
Yeah,
prize
we
or something.
actually thought about making a contest and giving people prizes for registering the most people, but then we thought it was sort of unfair because there's really huge classes and really tiny classes. So
We can go by percentile. Yeah.
percentage.
It also might be good to know who's already registered in the class, because that will give you an idea of the overall registrants that are on campus.
How will we get the number of forms that we need? for-
Excellent question. So in your packet, there's 20 forms to start you out with. If you sign up for classes that you'll see the student number on there that add up to more than 20, there's extra forms over here. So these are organized roughly in stacks of 60 or 80, so you can eyeball it and take as many as you need. I don't think we have any classes that are bigger than 50 students right now. But take what you need, and if you need more, let us know, and we'll find a way to get them to you.
Cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Do we have someone to talk to on campus?
Someone to talk
I
to.
mean, is there a central location other than a Dropbox? Is there
There's going to be a table
some,
like the campus center or something like that.
some office or something that has extra forms? Or
That's what we're gonna do.
We're trying to, and we're going to work that out and then let you guys know through email, but we already have established 2 Dropbox locations where you can
Yeah.
drop off the fill-out
Right.
forms. And then we're trying to create pickup zones at the same places where you can pick up more reg forms or pens or whatever you need. My cell phone number, you can call me anytime if you need anything. And we will figure out if there's anything else we can do besides that. But yeah, I think we thought about doing a table. I think we're still kind of figuring out the pieces, so we'll let you guys know.
One last thing, at the bottom of, if you scroll down to the very bottom of the sheet, all the slots are classes, but at the bottom there's tabling also. So there's 3 or 4 different tabling slots, and we could use folks there too. So if you got an hour and a half, I think the longest shift is 2 hours on there. You can just plug your name in there, and we'll follow up with setting you up for that.
Thank you guys so much, and it doesn't always feel like what you're doing as one person feels that important, because we're all humble people and we don't necessarily think we're that important, but trust me, like every single person that gets involved is important and makes a huge difference. And when we all get to involve together, it makes an even bigger impact. This is a part of a broader effort, as James said, and we're going to be partnering with you guys. We're going to be partnering with our CONU members in other places and trying to figure out ways to bring you guys all together, as well as with other organizations. So please, feel free to, if you want to get more involved in CONU and volunteer and get involved beyond just this registration effort, please talk to me. So thank you guys.
Also going out to community colleges.
What's that?
Are you going out to community colleges?
I want to. I think we're trying to figure out how to do that, as well as possibly target one district for the pre-primary and possibly 2 for after that. I mean, we're still kind of figuring out our plans, but this was an opportunity to come and register folks at UH Manoa that we didn't want to pass up. So we just decided to try to go for it, and you guys all showed up and it made it possible. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
I may be the only person from another school, but just out of curiosity, because I'm hoping to maybe start something at Hawaii Pacific University, how did you go about getting this kind of authorization to contact the professors and get UH involved, or was it you just contacted these professors directly?
Aiko worked her magic.
I can talk about it.
Okay, sounds good.
And thank you so much. I think we got invited to come in here, so thank you to you and whoever else that I haven't met has made that possible. We really appreciate it.
Thanks all you guys for putting in the extra time and effort to do the work.
Go get your shirts. Go get your